Should TCU redshirt freshman quarterback Hauss Hejny in 2024 or find a way to get him on the field? We'll talk about that and more next on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. I decided to go live today. It's 12:30 on Wednesday, and I decided to go live because TCU baseball is going to have first pitch in about 5 minutes against Oklahoma in the winner's bracket game in the Big 12 tournament. So it felt silly to me to record something at this time and then post it. I'm going to talk about yesterday's game mainly, but we'll also keep you updated on maybe the first inning, maybe a little longer of this baseball game, just depending on how it goes and how long I record. But I want to get out here and just do it live since we had real things happening right now. But Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I want to start with football, however, because Jacob Langford had a good question on the YouTube comments from yesterday's show. I've been doing this series where I go through the roster, not player by player, but essentially by position group. And I'm kind of resetting and saying, okay, here's who transferred in. Here's who transferred out. These are the players you lost. This is the production you lost. Who are the main players going to be at this particular position group in 2024? And yesterday I combined quarterback and running back because there wasn't a ton of movement at either of those spots. Chandler Morris moves on to UNC. Josh Hoover slides in to presumably be the starter this upcoming season. You also have Ken Seals and Hauss Hejny behind him. At running back, Amani Bailey ends up going to the NFL. And so you have really a whole new look at that position as well. But by and large, not much change happening at QB and running back. And I mentioned the possibility of TCU finding a way to get Hauss Hejny on the field this upcoming season because he's a great athlete. He showed that at Lido. He's a dual threat quarterback, really, really fast. And that was an aspect of the offense that was missing this past year. There wasn't a lot of mobility from the QB. Chandler dealt with what appeared to be maybe some kind of sports psychology issues coming off a couple injuries that kept him in the pocket a lot. And then once he went down, Josh was the only scholarship QB left on the roster. And so they really couldn't afford to run Josh. I also just don't think that's really his game. So that aspect of the offense, or a typical aspect of Kendall Briles' offense, was missing this past season. So I wonder if they find creative ways to get him on the field and have maybe like a special package of plays where he can show what he can do and use athleticism to hurt defenses. And Jacob asked me, do you want them to use Hauss in games this year and burn his red shirt? I wasn't sure, but I guess it depends on his development. So the red shirt question is a good one, and it's still something we think about in this day and age. He could play 4 games and still be able to redshirt this year. But I think we're at the point in college football where coaches can't really worry about redshirting players. Now, there's still certain positions. The offensive linemen that are coming in this year, especially since most of them project to be what we would call like high ceiling players, meaning there's potential there. I think Tobias Steps could end up being a really good tackle for them in the future. Crease Brister, Mitch Hodnett, Wesley Harvey. There's a number of guys that look the part that I think with some time in a strength and conditioning program and just developing at the college level, they could be really solid offensive linemen for the Frogs moving forward. But it's most likely not going to happen this upcoming year. And last year, Ben Taylor Whitfield was sort of thrust into that role as a true freshman, and it didn't work out super well. And that's no offense to Ben. Like, I think he's going to end up being a really good player, but ideally you wouldn't have him starting on the offensive line as a true freshman. So O-line, D-line, those positions where the physicality is just so different from the high school level to the college level. You have your rare instances like Dom Williams, who came in and was immediately an impact player. For the most part, though, those are guys that are going to have to work their way on the field, develop, get to a place where they can play at the next level. Honestly, though, for skill guys, we're talking about wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs. There's a lot that goes into the quarterback position. And if Hauss ends up being the starter for multiple games this year, then I think some things went awry in the plan for TCU. Josh Hoover maybe got hurt or maybe just wasn't what they thought he would be. I guess the third option, the more positive option, would be maybe Hauss just forces his way on the field because he's so ready and so good. But especially at quarterback, where, and I don't begrudge the players for doing this, but there's so much freedom of movement now. And guys, if they don't get a chance to play, they typically move on quickly. Now, you hope it's different with Hauss because he's got a lot of ties here, and he was committed to Duke, but it seems like, it seemed like as soon as TCU got really involved in his recruitment, he was like, all right, I'm ready to be here, and this is where I want to be, and this is home. And so I hope that carries over and means that, he's ready to stick it out through kind of whatever happens. But with the way transfer rules are now, I just don't think you can worry about redshirting guys that much. Now, I mean, that's not to say, like, if he's not ready, he's not ready. And I think we saw this last year with Cordell Russell, and a lot of you are frustrated, and I understand why you're frustrated with the fact that he wasn't on the field because he was our highest rated recruit, and, hey, you expect him to be out there. I kept saying, and not that the coaches are above criticism, but I was like, I feel like we have to sort of defer to the coaching staff here because they're the ones that are in practice. And we don't have all the information. But from the perspective of, if you want to keep guys happy and you want to build something, you need to have them on the field. I totally understood why folks were frustrated that he wasn't out there last year, especially once the season kind of took a turn and basically, about halfway through the year, it's pretty clear that TCU is going to be fighting for bowl eligibility, and they didn't have a chance to make it to Arlington. So all that being said, no, I wouldn't really worry about the red shirt. I think if he can play and he can help your offense, then you find a way to get him out there, because eventually there's going to be a lot of changes, and we're starting to move away from the world we're in now where you have all these extra COVID years and waivers that are being approved, and they're players that are in college for 6-7 years. But if he's ready to go and he can make an impact, I think you don't worry about the red shirt at all, and you just get after it and play with what you got. DB Production says we need a 3 QB system. Yeah, I don't envision that happening, but I think there's a world where Hauss is on the field and he can do some things for TCU, and he can just use the athleticism he has and that dual threat ability he has to make it work and make things happen. Another subplot to this that is fascinating to me as we look towards the future, and this is pertaining to 2025, Ty Hawkins, who is a quarterback commit for 2025 for the Frogs. He was the first commit of the 2025 class. He was recently invited to the Elite 11 finals, which Elite 11 has become a huge industry. It's going to take place in mid-June. It's 3 days of workouts and competitions. It's in LA this year. And they take the best high school quarterbacks in the country and they let them compete and go through drills and, go through different contests. And then they declare, winners. There's MVP. And it's really big as far as ranking those guys, the pecking order of where it stands in the composite rankings and all those types of things. So Ty's been invited to the Elite 11 finals. That roster, Bryce Baker, who's currently committed to North Carolina, Ty Hawkins committed to TCU, Trammell Jones, who's committed to Florida State, Deuce Knight, Notre Dame commit, KJ Lacey, Texas commit, TJ Lateef, Nebraska commit, Julian Lewis, USC commit, Hudson Longstreet, A&M commit, George McIntyre, who's committed to Tennessee, Ryan Montgomery at Georgia, Keelan Russell at Duncanville, who is committed to SMU, Kevin Sperry, who's committed to Oklahoma, Tavian St. Clair, who's committed to Ohio State, and then Matt Nolers, who is currently committed to Mizzou and is from Pennsylvania. So best quarterbacks in the country, they're going to be competing at a high level. Hauss Hejny was in this event last year. Sorry if you see I'm a little distracted here. I'm trying to get the TCU baseball game up on ESPN+. But Ty's going to go compete, and he's going to play with the best of the best. And the crazy thing now about how we sort of work quarterback rooms and try to build your roster is it's really difficult to have two talented QBs on the roster at the same time. I think Kendall Briles has done a really good job recruiting at the quarterback position since he got here. He hit the ground running. He got Hauss Hejny committed for 2024. And it was pretty shortly after that he found Ty Hawkins, not found him like he was under a rock, but, he started building that relationship with Ty Hawkins in San Antonio, got him to commit, and made him the centerpiece of the 2025 class. So that's really good. Now, the juggling act and the tightrope that they're going to have to walk over the next few years, because Josh Hoover has multiple years of eligibility. We'll see what he ends up doing after this season. Hauss Hejny is going to be a true freshman this year, and then Ty's coming in next year. And so how do you make sure everybody feels valued, feels like they're building towards taking over when only one guy is going to be on the field? That's the challenging part about roster management now in college football, and the big challenge for TCU moving forward. But, you have to have talent to win. So it's a good problem to have. As far as the red shirt goes, though, no, I don't really think you can worry about red shirts too much in this day and age. I feel like, honestly, it's a bigger worry for players than it is for coaches, just because there's so much movement now with the portal. And sometimes people, they try to make it a referendum on the current generation of kids. And I understand where they're coming from, but honestly, I just think the bottom line is college football is now a business. We can lament that. We can be upset about it. But that's the world now. And so these guys are under a lot of pressure. They want to play. They want to perform. They want to be good. And so it's difficult to accept that you might have to wait for a few years. And if they can find an opportunity to play somewhere else, they will. DB Productions also said that Max didn't perform well in practice, but he performed on the field when it counted. Yeah, he did. And you're right. Like I said, there's instances where the coaches just get it wrong, evaluating practice tape as opposed to game tape. But at the same time, I'm not at practice every day. So it's hard for me to, from afar, be super critical. But I understood why people were so frustrated with the Cordell Russell situation last season. When we come back, I'll update you on the current TCU baseball game that's happening right now against Oklahoma. And we'll also talk about what they did yesterday. Let's come on up here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. eBay Motors. If you need help finding a part for your vehicle, you need to use eBay Motors. You can't mess around with your car. You can't do it. You have to find the right part. And the great thing about eBay Motors is they have eBay guaranteed fit, the right parts that fit your ride. You can put in the make and model of your car, put the part you want in your shopping cart, and then it'll tell you if it's the right fit or not for your car. Whether you're trying to level it up to peak performance or just keep that maintenance going, eBay Motors has got you covered. Millions of parts for your MVP with parts every time that fit your ride. eBay Motors, proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Use them today. Don't mess around with parts for your car. Continuing here on Locked On Horned Frogs. So Frogs have a runner on second with 2 outs here in the top of the first inning. Sam Myers hit a double to kind of get us started here. He got a double with 1 out. And then the next batter came up and hit an absolute rope to left field. But Kendall Pettis made a great diving stop. It was Curtis Byrne that got out there and got it done for the Frogs. Well, he didn't really get it done. It was nice. It was a nice hit, nice AB, but ended up being an out. And then Logan Maxwell just grounded out. So after the top of the first, we got no score here between TCU and Oklahoma. Peyton Tole on the mound today as the Frogs try to cement their tournament hopes and get to a place where they feel pretty good about making the NCAA tournament this next week. Monday will be the selection show on Memorial Day. What happened yesterday? So TCU, they beat West Virginia yesterday in a close game. They ended up winning 5-2. Brody Green had a late home run to give the Frogs a 5-2 lead. Brody also had a triple that led to the first run of the game. They got up 3-0. Cademan Parker gave up a 2-run bomb to cut that lead to 3-2. But then Braden Sloan came in the ball game, and he was outstanding in relief yesterday. And Cademan Parker also had a really good start, going 5 innings and only giving up 2 runs. Cademan's line, 5 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. And then Braden Sloan, 4 innings, only 1 hit, didn't give up any runs, struck out 6. Man, Braden's one of those guys, and it's been a frustrating part of this season. The lineup has been consistently the thing that is disappointed this year. But the pitching staff, even though the numbers are good, outside of Tole, it's been sort of up and down just with consistency with different arms. And Braden's one of those dudes that when he's on, my goodness, like that changeup is nasty. He's got good secondary stuff. He can really throw a lineup off balance and just be an outstanding relief option at times. He was against UCLA early in the year. They tried to put him in the starting rotation. That didn't really work out. And so after that, he's been very hit or miss. But yesterday, he was fantastic. And that's the type of those are the type of unsung here. Like if this team's going to make a run, they're going to have to do some unexpected things that they really haven't done all year. That's why they've struggled this season. That's why they're under 500 in Big 12 play. And it's been a very up and down season is because they just haven't been consistent. And so you're going to have people step up. Last year, Trey Richardson had a solid season, but then he went to another level when the postseason rolled around. Cole Klecker established himself as a number one starter. Sam Stoutenborough established himself as somebody who could give you quality innings as a starter. And they just got some of those unexpected results that you need to go on a run late in the year. And that's what they're trying to build here. Oklahoma is the 1 seed in the Big 12 tournament, but you've got your best arm on the mound today. And so if you win today, then I think you feel good about making the postseason. Now, the Lipton Drinking Club, which they do a great job covering baseball, they seem to think that win yesterday got things locked up. I'm not so sure about that. I will defer to them because they cover baseball more closely, not only with TCU, but on a national level. And they seem to have a really good handle on what, the committee thinks. And I guess what the prognosticators have to say as well. D1 baseball did have TCU in the field, even after losing 2 out of 3 to West Virginia and finishing the Big 12 slate under 500. But I would feel a lot better if they could win today or really just win one more because it's double elimination. So if you lose today, you'll still play. You'll play tomorrow morning, and then you'll have to work your way out of the loser's bracket from here on out, which is always an uphill battle. It's especially an uphill battle for a team like TCU that doesn't have just a plethora of arms that they can throw out there, both in the bullpen and as starters. But if you beat Oklahoma today, then I think you feel good about where you stand postseason-wise. And then hopefully you can just kind of fine-tune some things, get on a run, and do well the rest of the year or the rest of this, short run this week and see where you land in postseason play moving forward. But TCU and Oklahoma, Peyton Tole pitching to his first batter here. He's behind 2-1 to Spikerman, now knotted up at a 2-2 count after a foul ball. So we'll keep tabs on that over the next few minutes. As they get underway at Globe Life Field. They played really well there through the years. That seems like just a good environment for them, both the Big 12 tournament and being there at Globe Life. We'll come back and get some of your reactions and more. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. Vince, while we were live streaming here, he said, are we sure that Dykes is a quarterback guru? No, we're not. I think I said this yesterday when I was talking about the quarterback situation. There were obviously some blind spots with Chandler Morris. I don't know what all of them were. I imagine that he was a good practice player and probably as a coach's kid, processed things well, could go through his reads pretty well, and maybe that was just super enticing to the offensive staff. But, they definitely missed 2 years ago when they put him as a starter over Max, and then Max ended up being the dude because Chandler unfortunately got injured, and he took the opportunity and ran with it. And then last season, I think you could argue that they made the wrong choice as well, even though not a lot of us had Josh Hoover on our radar before the year. But I said this on Tuesday's show, at the very least. And I hate to get into this because I don't always love trying to read body language from afar and all those things. But at the very least, the team responded well to Josh Hoover and his leadership. Like when he took over, it seemed like that was a shot in the arm from an energy standpoint. It seemed like the team just kind of took a deep breath and played better after that. They won a couple games. Granted, it was against BYU and Baylor, teams they theoretically should have beaten. They were favored against, but still, they won those ball games. Frogs got 2 outs here in the bottom of the first, by the way. Peyton Tolle with a couple strikeouts. He tries to work a clean bottom of the first inning against a good Oklahoma lineup in the winner's bracket game here in the Big 12 tournament, if you're just joining us. But, yeah, I mean, he's had issues evaluating QBs, and that's something they got to address. Now, I think as far as guys that they've recruited and since Kendall's been here, I mean, both of them are 4-star talents. That doesn't mean they're going to be guaranteed to be great players, but it seems like they're getting they're winning battles against like really good programs to get these guys, and they're Elite 11 finalists. And so theoretically, they should transition really well to the college game. But I mean, Vince, that doesn't always that's not always the case, and doesn't always mean that they're going to be great college players. And Vince said he agrees with me. Josh seemed to have the team, and that was just kind of my amateur observation, is that it felt like the team responded well to him when he took over. And, that's a big deal. Like, that's a big part of leadership. That's a big part of being the QB. And it certainly felt like, Josh was the guy. And I feel like you can find ways to get Hauss involved this year without diminishing Josh's role. Nice play. I think that was Ryder Robinson there at third base. Frogs got out of the first inning with no hits, no runs there. So still scoreless headed to the top of the second as TCU takes on Oklahoma in the Big 12 tournament. But thanks for joining kind of our short little live stream here. We'll keep tabs on this baseball game. Also, we'll have plenty of coverage of TCU football all off season long. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.